Hello, this is Chuck Solomon, and welcome to the Candidate Experience Podcast, where we focus on the job candidate journey from apply to onboard and the space in between. Let's get started. You care about the candidate experience, but have you ever wondered exactly how to bring your company to that next level and offer a world-class experience to your candidates? It's not easy. Fortunately, Candidate.fyi can help. Their solution guides candidates through your hiring journey, enhancing transparency and communication at every touch point. You'll also gain valuable insights on what's working and what's not with your hiring process. Best of all, it integrates directly with your ATS. Head on over to Candidate.fyi and see how to transform your company's candidate experience today. Welcome to the It's Not You, It's Us episode, where my special guest, Jessica Russell, People Operations Manager at First, shares her insights and confessions on the candidate experience. Pay close attention to what she has to share about making diversity and inclusion an important part of your company's culture, even if you're a small startup. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast, please subscribe and do share with others. Want to comment, discuss, or provide feedback, you can send me a note via LinkedIn or via the contact form on our website, thecx.xyz. I thank you for listening, and here's my interview. Hey, Jessica, how are you today?
Hey, I'm so good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. I know we've tried to do this for a couple of times, but I'm glad I was able to get you on today. So for my listeners, please tell them sort of your job title and what in the company you work for and what your company does, because they've probably not heard of it before.
Yeah, well, I'm one of your listeners, so I'm excited to be on here as a speaker as well.
Thank you.
Hi, listeners. My name is Jessica Russell. Everyone calls me JRuss, and I am the People Ops Director at a startup in Durham, North Carolina called First. We create a tool for real estate agents to help them connect with the right people at the right time. So there's a lot of pairing of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And really our goal is to help real estate agents connect with people who are going to be moving in the near future, people that they already know in their own network.
Great. One of the things I like about First is that unlike a lot of other companies that are trying to sort of disrupt this real estate space, you have real estate agents are your partners in this. So that's one of the things that I like about you, that they're sort of first and foremost, and you're not, trying to take away their jobs. You're trying to help them. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, one of the things that gets me really excited, I really appreciate you saying that, is I think most of the technology that's been developed over the last 10 years really pulls the relationship away from a real estate agent. And there are some incredibly smart people who want to buy and sell their homes on their own, and that's amazing. But most people will want to find a trusted advisor to make this purchase with. And so we really focus on the relational aspect and pair that with this really cool artificial intelligence. And so instead of it being like a lead or, a farming list or, like a drip or whatever, we're really giving agents information about people that they already know. So there's already a little bit of trust built up there.
Gotcha. So I'm really excited to talk with you. I talk with a lot of people and I ask for a lot of feedback about this. And one of the pieces of feedback that I got from listeners was that I don't talk to enough practitioners like yourself, people that are in the weeds every day, you had to delay this call a little bit because you said, I have to get an offer letter out to someone, which is great. So you really are in the weeds. So, because I really think that someone like yourself offers a unique perspective. And so I appreciate you taking the time with me today.
Of course. Yeah. I remember when you told me months ago that you wanted to start this podcast. I was like, oh my gosh, it makes me feel guilty just thinking about this because sometimes, I try my hardest to make everyone feel loved and encouraged and inspired and, be honest about who would be a good fit for our company. But we spend, I know one of your previous um, guest talked about if you consider your customer, you
Yep,
should be treating your employees the same or your applicants the same way. And I was
I
like,
agree.
that's so true. And I don't always do that. And so I feel like this will be a little bit of a confessional.
That's fine. And I actually had a guest that said, I confessed, I've made mistakes, and I said that's okay. So if you want to confess here, that's fine with me. I don't know if you remember when we first met. That sounds like a song there, but we met at I think first had like 10 employees. You were over at the bullpen over at Duke's Innovation and Entrepreneurship building
Oh,
over on
that's
Moore Street.
right. Yeah, we
And
were planning our OKRs that day.
yeah, I think you had like 10 people. I remember you were serving lunch and you didn't offer me any, but that's okay. I was working on something else. But
We probably bought just enough food for their 10 people.
yeah. But and so that was maybe 2 years ago, maybe. And like that, you had 10. How many employees are you up to now? Just so listeners get a sort of scope of how big you are.
Yeah, like most startups, we've fluctuated and leaned towards growth, but right now we're at 25.
25. Still some, considerable growth, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are you hiring right now?
Always.
Always.
Yes, we are.
Can you give like a quick, just in case there's some listeners in the Triangle area of North Carolina, or someone that wants to actually move to the area, where we are one of the more rapidly growing areas of the United States. But what are like sort of some typical roles that you're hiring for?
Well, obviously they would never be typical, Chuck, but no, I'm
Sure.
just saying. So we have about 2/3 of our team in Durham and about a third of our team spread out all across the United States. It's been really amazing to see some of our best employees, actually, their spouses or their partners may have gotten positions elsewhere. And instead of leaving, they just bring their computer with them and are able to work from wherever they are. So even if people are excited about what we're doing, some positions are much better suited for our Durham office, but a lot of our roles are across the country. We are always hiring great salespeople. So I'm currently looking for some folks with some strong real estate tech experience, which is really specific.
Right.
But we're rolling out some brokerage channel partnerships, so we'll be hiring them quite a bit. But I think the biggest one that I'm always hiring for are backend engineers with Ruby experience. So that's probably one of the harder ones to fill. And then things like product managers, product marketing managers, customer operations or customer success folks. Those types of roles are usually available on our site.
Sure. So this might be where you might want to do some confessing here, but I'll ask you like a two-part question here. What is like the typical candidate journey like for a typical candidate at first, either sort of like in reality or what the way you would envision it to be in a perfect world if you could create the perfect candidate journey?
Yeah, so I think in a perfect world, candidates probably wouldn't even apply. In a perfect world, I'd probably find them
Sure.
through a mutual connection, or I'm a part of a lot of like women in tech Facebook groups or LinkedIn. I do a lot of sourcing on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Ideally, I'd find them, they're happily employed, and then they see this opportunity and they're thrilled. And then after talking back and forth on, maybe schedule a phone call or a Zoom or even in person if they're local. And from initial conversation until hire, maybe it's just a few weeks of um, ideally no more than 3 or 4 calls or interviews. One of the things that's always a part of our interview process is some type of project. And we try for that to be something that's like part of the iteration or the sprint that we're working on right now. So it's not like, oh, see if you can work MailChimp. It's usually for a developer, it might be, hey, let's jump into the code of the story that I'm working on right now.
Sure.
Or for, we just recently hired a VP of growth. We just kind of did a whiteboard of saying like, okay, what's our go-to-market strategy and how would you help us iterate on this? So there's usually some type of you getting to know us and us getting to know you through a couple hours of actually working together. And then everyone always speaks to our CEO. I think that's a really special part of our company culture right now. We're small enough to where the CEO can really get to know someone. Once we know we want to bring someone on board, they're usually that kind of icing on the cake. I've had a couple people tell me that was kind of their favorite part of the interview process, is to like get time with the CEO talking about opportunities and where this position might lead in the future. Like
Tell
you
me,
said, that doesn't, yeah.
yeah, I want to know. I mean, if your candidates are saying that's one of the best parts of with meeting with the CEO, do you know what goes on? What's happening?
Behind the scenes. Well, yeah, I mean, probably like most tech startup CEOs, our CEO, Mike Schneider, is just delightful.
Hmm.
He, hasn't labeled himself a salesperson, but he's one of those guys who could like sell, ice to a person who lives in an igloo. But the
Right.
reality is that like it's not like a swarmy kind of salesperson. He's just so great at figuring out what people need or want and how we can be a part of that. And if it's a good fit, really helping them feel a part of something bigger than themselves. I think he has a really beautiful gift of connecting with people in really short bursts of time. If you look at his calendar, he's got something scheduled every 15 or 30 minutes, but he
Sure.
can be super present in those short conversations. And so I think more than what he says, it's him listening and then the candidate feeling like they're being heard by the person who's responsible for the company. He has a phenomenal way of expressing his vision for where we're going. And a lot of people are here because of his leadership and enthusiasm. So we
Right.
love getting to be a part of that.
Yeah, there's a VC based up in Boston. His name is David Skok, Skok, I believe. And I've actually tried to get him to come down to North Carolina. He hasn't accepted my invitation yet. But David, if you're listening, the invitation's always open to you. There's direct flights on JetBlue and a couple of the airlines every day, several times a day from Boston, from Logan to RDU. Anyways, but David writes about this, and I'll probably put this in the notes on this episode to share with other, especially startup founders and startup folks like yourself. But he talks about one of the most important things that any startup founder can do is build a team. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like really, really critical to the success for the organization, like even more so than like fundraising, or of course, having paying customers is a good thing to have too. But if you don't have a staff that can grow with you and solve the problems and meet the demands of your clients, then you really don't have anything. But
Mm-hmm.
sounds like Mike has figured that out as well as yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just a natural thing for him, and so it's a great gift to get people who think that they're really excited on the phone with him, and it seems to really confirm that decision to join the company.
Gotcha. All right. I said I wasn't going to have any hard questions, but I thought of a hard question for
Ooh,
you.
bring it. Yeah.
So how would you, two-part question, how would you rate the candidate experience and the candidate journey at first on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest? And then second part, this is you rating the candidate journey. And the second part is, how would candidates rate the journey through first?
I think that's a fun question. I don't think it's hard. It's difficult to answer because it so totally depends. We've had some roles where from posting to hiring, it's super smooth. This is rare. It's smooth. And I'd say, oh my gosh, that was like an 8 or a 9, that was super strong. And then there's a role we're hiring for right now where we've probably changed what we're looking for 3 or 4 times. We've had some internal staff changes, and that makes us reconsider what we're looking for. We had some funding changes, and now we're thinking, oh man, we can dream a little bit bigger. There's so many behind the scene things that happen. And so sometimes it could suck, sometimes it's a 3 or a 4, which breaks my heart. Right. But I think that, one thing that I'd want to communicate in my confession is that oftentimes it's not you, it's us. And I think that's something that we're learning as a team, is to how to even communicate when it feels like you don't have time and when it feels like you don't even have a decision yet. But the importance of getting back to people, that it's not something we're always great at. There's 14 other things that seem like a higher priority. But I think after listening to you and really thinking through what is someone's experience with us, like I want everyone to feel really respected. And
sure.
So it's important. It's not always consistent, just based off of what size we are and how we grow.
Sure. I think you might have given me the title of the episode. It's not you, it's me. Or
it's not you, it's me. Yeah. We could say that sometimes.
Yeah. You said it's not you, it's us. So
exactly.
Maybe I go into these and I have no idea what the title or of each episode sort of percolates from within. So this is truly a collaborative process. So thanks for collaborating with me on this there. But who knows what else will come up. And I think I'll share with you the episode that's actually going to come out on Friday. My guest, I asked her, what is like one tip that you would give companies on how to improve the candidate journey? And she said something that it didn't surprise me, but I was like, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. But you sort of touched on it here in your comments. But the tip that she offered was, before you start on a hiring process, the first step should be look at your job description and see if it applies, and go ahead and review it or refine it or amend it, edit it, do whatever it is that you need to do to sort of really drill down on what it is that you're really looking for.
And honestly, there are at least 3 times I can think of in the past year where we've set out, we do take a pretty close eye. I make our hiring managers take a really close eye on the job description, especially like, is this like primarily going to attract mostly male candidates, mostly female candidates? Like what language are we using to make it a space where everyone feels like it might be for them. But oftentimes things happen between posting and when you're actually, ready to make an offer. And so going with those punches and communicating those are really important.
Yeah. I've had several, and I know you listen to the show too, so you've probably heard this already too, that, that communication is like the key. I think I've been guilty of it in the past as well, is that you don't have any good news to tell a candidate.
Exactly.
So you don't say anything. So which is worse. So I think sometimes and I am using the word we because I'll confess to this too, is that I didn't have anything good to say, so I just sort of avoided. So candidates that I did that to in my past life as a recruiter. I apologize because it's just, I didn't have anything good to say, so I didn't want to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that resonates. And to be honest, my role, number one, we're a small team. So it's amazing that we, as a team, invested in my role. When I first came on board, I was primarily working with our customers. So we coached our customers. We had one-on-one coaching with every customer for about an hour every week. So that was my primary role. And then we decided to kind of scale that and grow that into a customer success team. And so we hired someone to lead that. And I was really excited. A lot of times companies don't, startups don't bring on someone until, 40 or 50 people big. And so we've invested early on in this role, but it's still amazing how quickly other things can get on your plate. So while I am the recruiter, I'm also the person who manages all of our benefits and the person who, pays the part bookkeeper and accountant, part office manager. I'm the one who books the meetings for the team, all these little things. And so on any given day, it's not like I'm just in LinkedIn, and so it's important for me to remember, like, okay, which emails have I gotten in? Have I been responsive enough? I know that there are some seasons of life where things aren't as crazy and I'm able to respond to everything and be on my game, and other seasons where, we're not as proactive as we could be.
Sure. Yeah. I just so everyone knows, you're the one person human resources department, correct? There's no one else that works doing your functions, right?
Oh, not at all. No. Yeah. So I'm the one person HR, people, we call it people ops because it's really more, and we just like that term better. And then also office manager, like I do a lot of the accounting and bookkeeping functions. So yeah, there's several different types of work that I do on a daily basis.
That's interesting. And so since you started off in a client support role, right? That you really understand the business, like from the inside out, because you are talking with customers and trying to onboard and train customers. So I think that's great.
I love it. Yeah, there are so many HR professionals who feel like they either don't understand or aren't engaged with the business side, and I don't have to worry about that. I feel like not only have I developed relationships with some of our early customers, but I understand a lot of their pain points. And oftentimes people ask, like, what's the culture like? And I think about the culture as being how we do things. And for us, we're super customer focused. And I can say that not only in talking about our team, but that's where I spent the majority of my energy for the first season of my time at First.
Sure. Is there like one thing or two things that you would want prospective job candidates to know before they begin before they hit the apply button with your company?
Yeah. Understanding the way agile startups work is important. I spend a lot of times with people who, around here, there are some really amazing startups, but then there's a lot of people from much larger organizations that have this like, ooh, startups are sexy. Let me check those out. And so I think just knowing a little bit about how a venture-funded startup works would be a great thing to learn about, so that you can come ready to understand our culture a little bit better. And then another thing too is one of the amazing things about working at a startup is there's just ample opportunity for professional growth. And so I don't love questions like, tell me what you want to do in 5 years, but I will often ask, like, how do you want to learn, or how do you want to contribute, and what do you want to learn in your next role? And I think people who have a clear direction around what they want to be learning are going to do really exciting work here, because it's not like we have the capacity for like a leadership and development program, but we have people who've learned entirely new skill sets just because they're like, oh, this is needed and I want to learn it. Let me jump in and take the initiative. So those are things that I think set people up to be a good culture fit in our environment.
Yeah, I love those sort of lifelong learning, questions like you know what you know today, but to be relevant as a job candidate. And I think a lot of companies are putting the onus of this back on their employees. They're saying, hey,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know what is the hot new thing in software engineering 5 years from now, but you better be sort of paying attention to that and sort of learning something new, because there's always something new coming down the pike. I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you before, but if I have, forget it. Forget I mentioned to you before. I'll say it again. I'll repeat myself. But there's a book by the former Netflix chief human resources officer. Her name is Patty McCord. And
Yes, I read
yeah,
that based off
yeah,
of your suggestion.
yeah.
She's amazing.
Yeah, they did some crazy things at Netflix, I think, but I think the one thing that stands out is, they started off being a DVD distribution company, and now they are a media company and a streaming company.
Mm-hmm.
So the skills that they needed, when they first started, those, they don't need to know how to get DVDs from point A to B and stuff anymore, because that's not their business anymore. So
Yeah,
I,
and one of my big takeaways, or I guess the freedoms I felt from her book, was this. I'll often have people ask, like, well, what's the policy around
right,
whatever? And I'm like, that's cute. You think we have a policy for this? And it's not that we don't care. It's just that our focus is not necessarily on creating HR policies.
sure,
So little things like we have a common sense, PTO policy where like we put it on the calendar just so that people know if you want to do a meeting with people, like who's going to be there. But we're not super intense about tracking it. It's kind of like take the time you need. And here's a little bit of a guideline. But I really felt freedom in her book to say like, that's actually fine. Like you don't have to do things. You don't have to like create this super intense corporate manual all of a sudden just because you're growing a company. You can kind of wait and see, and what does your team need, and how can you adjust based off of the needs, and not create too much of a large organization feel too quickly. I loved the creativity and innovation that she experienced, and really reading it, I was like, wow, this was counter-cultural at the time, and now is kind of how we operate, in the startup
yeah,
world. So I really enjoyed
yeah,
that book.
yeah. I think she sort of talks about the old school HR, and HR
Mm-hmm.
is where we make the rules and everyone follows them, and also we protect the company from being sued by rogue employees and stuff. And I think the reality is a lot of people rebelled against this sort of structure. I think if you hire adults, work with them on setting expectations on everything work related, and most importantly, it's really about best serving your clients' needs and providing them value. I think generally things usually work out well.
I totally agree, because you could have this really intensely structured performance appraisal process, but if the people who manage teams don't know how to have like hard feedback conversations where they're encouraging and also like giving direct, concrete feedback about like things that either were going amazingly well or things that were a super miss, then like the process doesn't matter. It's very much about the people. And so that's where we're able to focus right now, is just saying, we want to focus on making, what we say is we want to create an environment where people can do the best work of their careers here. And so we want to get all the other junk out of the way, to be able to focus on that vision.
Awesome. Well, I've taken a lot of your time today. I appreciate your time and insights into things. If folks want to reach out to you or find First, could you sort of let people know how they would find you or find First?
Yeah, we are, our company is called First, and you can find us at first.io. And then my name is Jessica Russell, and I'm on all the places as Jessica and then J Russ in the middle, Russell. So J Russ, on all the places, LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm not on Snapchat, but all the other places.
That's okay. I won't be Snapchatting you. So I think I'm one of the few people that doesn't call you I call you by your given name. So I like the name. So, but I hope you forgive me for that.
Oh, no, it's great. And I just want to say thank you. I've learned a lot through the candidates that you've brought, or the people that you've interviewed. And so I really, one thing that I wanted to say before we log off is we focus a lot around, in the tech space, it can be very white male driven. And oftentimes you hire people, and a lot of times your circles look similar. And so our team has put a large emphasis on bringing in people who look different, who think different, who have different backgrounds. And I recently saw a post where it said there's a difference between making everyone feel welcome and saying that this space was created for you. And so I think that's something that I've been thinking a lot about as we're hiring and making our just work environment a space that's created for people of different backgrounds and created especially for minorities and women. I was the first female on our team, and we've brought on a lot of women since then, and we've brought on people of varying ages, which is amazing, and different backgrounds. And so I know that's important to companies regardless of their size. And so just this concept of creating spaces that are, created with diversity in mind is really important.
Right. That's great to hear, because I know, especially with the larger Fortune 500 companies, there's a huge D&I is the catchphrase, diversity and inclusion, that they're, it's like 2019 seems to be the year of this. And, for me, it's like, well, why'd you wait so long? So,
amen. Amen. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good to see like a startup with not the resources that a Fortune 500 company has at their disposal is still, making a concerted effort to go ahead and, build a place that everyone's welcome. So kudos to you guys.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks for listening to the Candidate Experience Podcast. You can reach out to us via our website, thecx.xyz. That's thecx.xyz.